Just taking a wander through the local John Lewis now. I'm back in Glasgow and I've been looking at some of their lights, and some of their stuff is really interesting. First of all, they've got a display area where they've got different themes of trees just to inspire people into, you know, the options they have available. But I see a strong bias towards this style of light. Now, these are the ones that we're kind of used to, you know, the sort of like the copper wire lights, the LEDs in the end. They're not showing up too well here because they're swamping out because they're so bright. In this case, they've twisted it in sort of like the, what's the best way to describe that? The sort of tinselly style effect, the cluster style. But some of their stuff is really interesting. Take a look at this tree. The wire that goes between them has a sort of web between it. I'm guessing that maybe this is pre-manufactured as two wires, just sort of bonding there between them. But the resin blobs are very three-dimensional. It feels round. It's not just like the standard drip blob. Moving over to the other one, they've got these clusters, super bright again and swamping out the camera, but that's what happens. And these are, I was going to say more traditional, except that the blobs at the end are almost spherical, the little resin blobs. This stuff is made with really thick copper wire, and the resin blobs aren't just like the sort of drip blob, it's almost like they're clear and crystal-like. And it looks as though they've basically potted the LED into a little mould. It is a very strange little thing. When you look at their displays of lights over here, here is the version of that with the sort of potted lens. I don't know if you can actually see it there. Let's see if I can get up close and see if you can catch this. It's very odd. Also, it looks very green because they've used a very thick green wire with extra sort of insulation on it. This is the white version of the potted clusters. There's the cold white version and the coloured. I've never seen this one before. This is basically like standard copper wire lights. I don't even know if you're going to see that. It's a standard copper wire light, but it's not just pulled into a tube. It feels like it's actually physically moulded plastic around it, so you end up with a very thin rope. Just over 1/8 of an inch, that's about, say, about 4 millimeters diameter, and they've got that in colours as well. When we go around here, the only traditional lights they've got are the little side emitting sleeved LEDs and the ones in the little spheres. And then it's back onto more of this stuff with the, in this case it's translucent resin. I don't know again if you're seeing that, it's kind of bright and it's perhaps having difficulty focusing. A more traditional, just resin dipped one, and yeah, that's interesting stuff. The neon ornaments, well, the neon ornaments, they are kind of making them styling. They're using the side glow sort of LED strip, where the LED strip is mounted sideways in here, but then it diffuses out both sides. Here's a tree made of clear plastic tubes with the LEDs threaded down inside. That's quite neat. It provides a very sharp, sparkly effect. There's a lot of stuff that's interesting here. Even their in-store displays. These appear to be just little nylon filaments hanging down with bits of mylar on the side, and they've got them interspersed with strings of the copper wire lights on other parts of the shop. And as the wind catches them, it just makes them move. It's very good. It's a really good display this year. Very good indeed. The most psychedelic tree of all. This one is based on the standard copper wire lights, but with green cable and magenta LEDs. That's the blue LEDs with the red phosphor on them. It looks super sharp, this tree. It looks spectacular, particularly with the sort of fluorescent coloured baubles. It's very disco style. That is very good. Taking a closer look at this, they've got the metal star at the top, by the look of it, with the outline of the same sort of materials here, this sort of hollow sleeve with the LEDs inside it. And they've got these secured at the top in the common connection point. They alternate with a coloured strip and a warm white strip, and then it goes down to the bottom of this metal frame. And the end cap is glued on, but the little eyelet and a spring to keep these taut, and that means there's a bit of play in them, so they're always going to be really rigid. It looks pretty good. It's quite an interesting thing. Another oddity, the classic sort of snowflake type effect, but they're using the sleeved side glow LEDs, but they've got little wire clusters coming out with the LEDs strapped onto them. Actually, they're heat shrink sleeved on, so it gives a very three-dimensional look. It's a series of little clusters. It's quite a smart effect. They've got the snowflake, and they've got this sort of wreath version. Spending a bit more time looking at their themes, they've got the traditional Christmas tree here, which is primarily white lights with a red bubble theme on the green tree. They've got the snowscape, which is again white, but cold and warm white LED lights with a sort of frosted theme and sort of ice-based sort of bubbles. It looks quite smart. They've got Sanctuary. I'm not sure about this one, it's a bit psychedelic, but their aim here is apparently pastels with these sort of weird tendrils of light coming out, which is an interesting concept. One of my favourites, Campfire, is more the traditional theme but with warmer colours, oranges and yellows and golds, and in amongst the red. It looks quite smart. The Garden Retreat. I'm not sure, maybe, again, it's mainly white lights. There's a bit of an intensity anomaly going on here. But mainly white lights with, I suppose, really sort of birds and stuff like that. It's definitely a theme. There is one of the campest ones, which is ABC, Rainbows and Robots, Unicorns and Ice Cream. This is Christmas Through the Eyes of a Child. It's also apparently Christmas Through the Eyes of homosexuals, because it's very much going for that full spectrum colour theme, which is okay. Let's see what I noticed they've got another one around here. Oh, this is better. This is better. Party. This is that weird psychedelic purple tree. I didn't even know they did the... Well, that's actually... Oh, sorry. Something I've not seen. Because the Christmas lighting industry has the huge sort of quantities, they've got the LED neon here. But in the strip of the neon itself, they've got the changes of colours on that. This is fuzzing out slightly. That's what I just cleaned the lens as well. Party, welcome to the disco. It's loud, it's bright and it's fun, this Christmas light, you've never seen it before. I would say, yeah, that's a very lurid but pleasing Christmas tree. That's quite smart. Any other themes? I think that's more or less it. More of these little mylar squares, but this time they've got the suspended the copper wire type strings of light, so it really creates a very psychedelic sparkling effect. And that's not motors rotating those, it's just purely the ambient air movement of these tiny little sails made of mylar. It's quite neat, it's a very good effect, and they've used it en masse. I know these are kind of old hat now, but I really like them. These are individual lamps. They're 0.5 watt, absolutely stone cold. It's got a single LED filament up the middle in, I think it's white LEDs inside coloured glass, and they've also got a white version of this with this just the bare warm white LEDs, and there's no warmth at all in the base or the top. I don't know, I can't really see much circuitry down there, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's just a simple resistor and rectifier for something like that. I don't really see much flicker. I don't think there's a power supply either. I think these are individual lamps and you can unscrew them individually. I don't know if they're in parallel or series. I guess given that there's a full string of LEDs that they're probably in parallel. Could be wrong. I could try unscrewing one, but it's not terribly easy with just with my bare hand. Hold on. So if I unscrew one, do they all go out? Nope, just one goes out. So it is just mains voltage LED lamps, but with a very low power filaments. I wish I could get just lamps like these on their own. They're quite smart, just with that single one filament inside them. It's quite neat. I should explain that John Lewis is a sort of what you might call a slightly upmarket store in the UK. It's very open plan. They've got mainly designer stuff, and it's on multiple levels. These shops tend to be quite huge, and they've basically got sort of what you might call interior layout sort of suggestions, I don't know, to promote their furniture, and quite an extensive lighting area. But the sort of lights that are really only suitable for incredibly wealthy people, because it is all quite expensive stuff. But it's an interesting shop. It's also got this sort of technology section with you can see the distance there with all the very large flat screen TVs where everybody vies for the largest, flattest screen. That's intimidating. It's a public service information booth, payphone and defibrillator all combined into the one unit. That's quite interesting, but a good idea to get the defibrillators out there. They're Zoll defibrillators. With presumably you call the emergency services and then they give you the code to open that up. Interesting stuff. These are fairly simple. I like them. I'm guessing from down here they're roughly 2 metre by 1 metre, but they're just basically an aluminium starburst with rope light on it, cold white rope light, and then alternate cold white and warm white loose wire strings, plus the meteor type effect. So this is Frasers, and see if you can detect the difference between the lights. There's the new lights, and there's the old lights, and there's the faulty lights. And they're not quite as flickery as it looks in the camera, but there is an issue there, and I can see it visibly. It's pretty unpleasant. Can you guess what that is? I like these Sputnik effects. They're very three-dimensional, and it looks like a fairly solid base in there. I wonder who makes those.